Alrighty, so we will be beginning this tournament match here in just a moment when both competitors have hopped online. They will be playing on a 6x6 board just like this one with a 15-minute time limit with a 10-second increment, meaning they get 10 seconds every turn added to their time. The competitors today are Fela and dFruh. This is the beginner tournament. So these are all folks who are either brand new to the game or have met that skill level requirement. Skill level requirement being not able to defeat Intuition Bot regularly or consistently, meaning less than 50% win rate, I guess, against Intuition Bot. And Intuition Bot is one of the bots available on playtac.com that plays just looking one move ahead at a time. And here we have the game. It has been created. Fela is going to be white first. dFruh is going to be in the black. Now, good news, I did get a new microphone today. I'm not using it right now, but I will be using it once I get it installed and everything set up. So you'll be seeing or hearing better quality from me. We do see a very unusual opening. We see the corner, which is standard, but then this off-center opening. Really unusual spot, but Fela, not too phased by it, does place in this center area for that center control, and it's making sort of an offset connection, which is really solid. We'll see what dFruh does to respond here after that unusual and unorthodox opening. Goes for a edge crawl in sixes. So edge crawl is the dominant strategy in a 5x5 size board because it's just so strong. It's very hard to interrupt it quick enough, and the edge is pretty close to the center. And the reason why it's not used so much in sixes is basically the opposite of those. There is one extra turn that you can use in order to block this threat, and it is farther away from that center control. And center control is really important if you want to be switching directions, changing where your threats are going. So right now we see Fela just continuing on this, and dFruh building off to the side. We do see Fela making a defensive move here, cutting off this threat. dFruh not phased, just continuing to build. I would have liked better an E5 here as opposed to the D5, because I feel like E5 gives this piece a little bit more protection to be recaptured by white than this offset one. Although if black does decide to capture over from here, that won't be a problem. But if black decides to place a capstone on E5, that is going to be a problem for white. dFruh disconnected for a moment, but is now back reconnected. Okay, black changing the direction of his threat. White can just go ahead and build here at F5 to basically continue this. That's what I would do, because we definitely don't want that, or I meant E5, sorry, not F5. You definitely don't want a capstone to drop here, because that will interrupt this vertical threat and sort of throw a wrench in all your plans and be pretty offensive for black. So instead, we do see a wall come out here for black. Not nearly as bad as a capstone threat would have been, but I can definitely see white dropping a flat here at E2 or at D1 to basically make that first tack threat. And there we go. We do see the tack threat by placing at D1. And dFruh will likely use this wall to capture over. There is a potential that he does take this flat at D6 and move it down. That also does the same thing, but increases liability because it is a flat stone. Okay, so we do see the wall come over. It will be interesting to see. Will white just build another flat here at E5 to continue the tack threat? Will they drop a capstone down? That's going to be the interesting play here on this next turn? I think a flat would be the best bet at this point. Don't want to drop that cap too far outside this area. This is sort of okay, but as we saw, black is starting to move their attention more in this direction. Okay, so white's not continuing making attack threat by placing here at e5, which is a little strange to me. But instead they are going to cut off this vertical threat from black and start building their own horizontal threat at the same time. Not a bad strategy. I would have expected them, like I said, I would have expected them to drop a flat here first to keep that capstone out of there. Now, I don't like that capstone position. Yes, it can capture in both directions, but I don't expect there to be a lot of action on this side. What I would have liked is maybe a flat here, and that would basically pin this capstone where it would have to move up to capture in order to do anything good. And if it moved up, you could just drop a wall here, and that would basically interrupt all those plans that black had for that horizontal road. And so now we do see black starting to build down instead of capturing for that threat, building down, and then black dropping another wall to interrupt that road threat. Now, dealing with that wall is going to be an issue because, again, the capstone is way up here, out of the action from this side. And if all the action starts moving down here, both of these capstones are kind of be out of luck. This one is going to have a little bit more mobility because it can reach over, capture, or flatten its own wall and create that 3 tall stack and be able to throw itself down to get in the mix of things. But white's capstone does not have that luxury. Now, white here can go for that pin, like I said earlier, at e4, or can decide to build around. Looks like it might be building around here, connecting here at this anchor point at f1. So it can maybe go below. Ooh, this is a dangerous position here. So black might be looking to smash their own wall on the next turn, which would be attack threat, or capture on the next turn, which would also be attack threat. But white doesn't really have to worry about it just yet because this capstone, again, is primed in the position to interrupt that threat. So it really just has to wait for the attack threat to appear because it is not a threat currently. White does notice that, is aware that it's not yet a threat, building this citadel, which is a very powerful formation in TAC, this 2x2 area. Okay, now we see the attack threat come out for black. This is where white was going to have to make a capture. So either moving f6 over to the left or moving b5 up to b6. I like moving f6 to the left a little bit more, but goes for the capstone move instead. Now, the capstone move does open up a few other options for white. This capstone can now sort of do a few things around here, maybe make a threat in a couple turns. Black wanting to continue this threat by placing here at b5 on the next turn. Now, what's interesting is if we wait, if white plays something else, maybe here at c4 or something like that, this capstone can come down, capture this next flat here at b5, and black will likely just place another flat right here, but then white will have the ability to throw 1, 2, and then crush this wall here for that road, which is very sneaky in a beginner's tournament, not something that a lot of these beginners will be accustomed to seeing as an option or as a threat, because it's not one of those just one over moves. It's going to be a throw, leaving behind many pieces. So white does place here to keep black from placing there. Now, black can do a number of things here. Gonna place a wall, which is very interesting to me. I'm not sure what this wall is meant to do. If I were white at this point, I would start playing more flats. Drop a flat here, drop a flat here, drop a flat down below. Just keep placing flats because at this point in the game, we see black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 flats on the board showing. White has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 flats showing. So can sort of uh, force that by placing all over the place. Now, I like this move here at A3. The reason I like this move is for the potential of throwing the capstone down. Granted, if he does throw the capstone down, that would leave a black flat here and leave a win, basically, for black. So not really an option to throw that at this point. At a later time, yes, maybe after capturing with E6 to D6, that could be an option to throw that capstone down. Instead, we see black completely miss the road threat, make a capture here, and then white fulfilled the road. So white wins game one. Fela takes game one here in this beginner matchup of the beginner tournament. Let's look back at these two moves. So we see white has this tag threat here by placing at B3, makes this connection from F1 to A3. Black, in response, should do something about this, maybe a wall, maybe a flat, something like that. Instead, decides to move F6 to the left, which is not a tag threat, but might pin this capstone in some way, and completely misses the B3 threat, which I'm guessing that dFruh in his mind, and this has happened to me a bunch of times, that he thought, okay, once I'm done with taking care of this threat, then I'll do this move, and then that'll be fine. And so he probably thought, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then so he just made this move before actually making the defensive move fair first. So that does happen quite a bit in my games, at least for me. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that somebody else would have that same issue. So it looks like Fela does have the Seek up. Fela playing as black, dFruh as white. They're going quickly into game two, not waiting around, taking a break, just going straight into it. Fela did disconnect. So it looks like we're waiting for Fela to reconnect to the game. And Fela is reconnected. dFruh again playing one of these really just different openings. As we've seen, pretty much everyone plays a corner for these first flats. Now dFruh has not played in a corner, his opponent's piece in the corner, in this game or in the previous game. So it's going to be interesting to see what dFruh wants to do here by placing the flat more in a central position, because it gives, in my opinion at least, a little bit of an advantage to black by placing them more centrally. So we see Fela is playing down here. Interesting that she went to place here at D3 as opposed to maybe putting something here at C2. Even a capstone at C2 would be pretty nice because it would create this sort of line vertically and cut off this horizontal threat at the exact same time. And you always want to be doing those offensive and defensive moves that serve both purposes, which is really strong. Okay, so we do see white building down, maybe hoping to go around this black flat. Fela saying no, going to be building here at E1 also to sort of continue this vertical threat. White does make that cross pattern here. So this is going to result in a capture at some point, probably not on this turn. I would not be surprised to see Fela maybe place here at F3 F3 and E4 are both fine placements. Does place here at E4. The wall does come over. Now will we see a placement here at E5? That's gonna be the question here, because I don't think black wants to capture yet. Again, capturing with a flat on top of another flat does create a liability, and you want to avoid as many liabilities as possible. It gives your opponent the opportunity to recapture that flat at some point, which you don't want them to be able to use those stacks and to spread out and make these big fancy plays and moves. Let's see. Fela is going to go for this sort of horizontal threat now, deciding to change gears, not go vertical, go horizontal. Interesting play. Got a little bit more momentum to go vertical at this point, so it is interesting to see Fela go for horizontal instead of vertical. Now this would be a great spot for a black capstone. It's got an opportunity to capture a stack, to capture here, to further a horizontal and a vertical thread at the same time. A capstone here at D2 would be that's going to be your best opportunity, and Fela sees it, which is great. So I'm guessing that dFruh will want to move this stack, probably move the stack over here to C3, which will keep it from being taken by the capstone. No, not going to move it. I would not be shocked to see Fela capture this stack now here up on D3. In my opinion, that is the strongest move here. Not going for it yet. Interesting. Very interesting. That definitely seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity, but I could be missing something here. Because dFruh could move this now on this turn and move it here and sort of start going for a vertical threat. Because if it is moved over and this black flat comes over and recaptures, this white flat can come up and then let's see. So it moves over, black flat, white flat. White's got this. Then black will do something here, maybe a wall or something like that. Okay, white comes down instead. All right, I am liking either of these captures. Not going for a capture, instead placing. Probably a smarter play, to be honest. Placing is going to be smarter in most opportunities. This one, though, especially because she's got two options to capture a stack, it's good. All right, now we see where some stuff starts happening. I can see Fela capturing here up on D3, gives attack threat, forces a response here, and keeps this capstone in an opportunity to cut off any threat in the future from white. So you want to force that response at D3, which is going to force a capture. See, the reason why this move, placing here at F3, is not as strong as this capstone is, let's look back here. So if you capture here, a wall here would not stop it. So you're forcing a capture by capturing here. One of these flats is going to have to come up and capture here on the 3 file. And what that does is that breaks up a little bit of this road threat at the same time, kind of. But also this has another piece to capture over and to recapture. So let's go back to what the move actually was, placing an F3, and then we see this stack move over to the side. Now we're in a position where black's capstone was previously in a dominant position, could have captured two different stacks, right? Now black's capstone, for lack of movement, doesn't have the opportunity to capture any stacks. and free more prisoners. And so that is going to be detrimental to black. So we do see black place here at f1 after that move. What that does is cuts off this horizontal threat, but also starts building again this vertical one. Now, I feel like when black's capstone does move, it's going to take c2 because I feel like it gives it a little bit more mobility than coming down here to an edge. Ooh, white's capstone comes out. It is important to note that right now there is no attack threat from either player. White's thinking to capture down or place here to sort of start building this connection. Black building at c4 is an interesting play. Specifically because that's not attack threat. If white decides to play here at b1, that's going to be pretty strong and tough to beat. Because playing at b1 makes this attack threat, black's going to have to respond. And they can respond in two ways, by coming down with the cap or coming over with this flat. Coming down with the cap will lead to white just placing here and renewing that threat. Okay, I did get a message from Fela that move 14 was a misclick, but they're just going to live with it. So there you go. And it may turn out to not be such a bad move. It is causing dFruh to take a little extra time on this turn to think about what he's doing and what that move meant and what's going to happen with it. So we do see white make that b1 play. So this is where I think moving f1 to the left is the better move. The reason for it is because d2 down just leaves another flat here, which renews the attack threat immediately. Yeah, you'll want to capture over with f1 to e1. It will result in a recapture, but that's not the worst right now. That's not a big problem. A wall right here would take care of that issue right away. Just a wall at d1, you'll be able to recapture that. And then he'll probably throw this stack up and then give that capstone a little bit more legs to move, which is fine. Going for a flat instead. Interesting. I don't know if I agree with that because white can place a flat here and make that attack threat, and then black is forced to come over and attack this, and then it gets recaptured again, and then we're just repeating things. Not sure how dFruh is going to respond to this. May decide to throw this up anyway and make this attack threat, because throwing e1, dropping 3 flats with a white on top here at e2, and then dropping 2 flats here with a white on top at e3 would create a attack threat, make a connection from here all the way down to there, f2 to a1. So it wouldn't be something that couldn't be easily stopped at this point, but it would be a threat. Although dropping 3 black flats right here in prime picking territory for this capstone, probably not what dFruh has in mind. Well, it looks like dFruh has disconnected. We hopefully just a connection issue that will resolve itself momentarily. Maybe accidentally hit the refresh button on the browser. But dFruh is next to act here. He has 2 minutes to return, otherwise he automatically forfeits, which is harsh, I know, but it is built into playtech. So you got 120 seconds to return from a disconnection. There have been times in the past where in my games I have had a disconnection where maybe the Wi-Fi stopped working and I had to grab my phone really quick and use mobile data to get back in. It looks like dFruh has reconnected, so he is good to go. He is not forfeiting just yet. He did use a little bit of his time there, probably about a minute and a half. So he's down to 10 minutes. Fela almost at 13. And while white is closer to making a threat here, it does look like black is more in control, has a little bit more center control. Oh, and Fela has disconnected now. It's just disconnections all over the place at this point. And Fela has reconnected. Okay, so we're good. All right, so white places here. Interesting strategy. That is attack threat. Capturing over onto D1 with the top 2 of E1 is attack threat. And we have seen these sort of threats be missed by our competitors in this beginner tournament in the past. So it's not too out there to think that this would be missed. And it means the capstone can't, come down here in order to stop this threat. The capstone will have to come over, or this flat will have to come over to E1. Either way, it results in an attack threat right now that Fela has to respond to. Responds with the capstone coming over. Now here's where I think it'll be interesting. What will white do on this turn? Will white capture over, leave this capstone to come back and capture this stack? Will white drop a flat here? Whatever white's plan is, they probably don't want to leave this stack or part of this stack to be captured by this capstone. They might move the entire stack over to D1. Now the one problem with moving the entire stack over to D1, no longer attack threat. Instead, dropping a flat here, creating attack threat again by capturing partially over to D1. Now, if black doesn't capture here, I'm going to have to talk to her a little bit after this game because this is basically just giving you such a powerful stack for your capstone. And it's setting you up for a really strong flat move and just overall great moves in the game. Because let's say black captures this with the white flat underneath. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll be able to, are forced to leave one black behind. Can throw over 1 black, 2 black, and then a capstone. So black, 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 all the way across, covering up multiple white flats, making that very strong positive flat move for black, putting you strongly in the lead. Very, very powerful move. And cutting off the threat for the time being for white. So I don't see any downside to capturing at this point. Fela might be considering capturing, like I was about to say, capturing over with the flat first to give maybe a little bit more possibility for throwing this stack around. Because now we see, is this attack threat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So can move 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I want to see black take this whole stack, move it, and cover up all of these from D1 to A1. And if you are hearing a siren, that is a tornado siren. Just a test though, not a tornado currently going on. Black not moving this stack, very strange, because now black can't use this capstone to capture down because the capstone is pinned. Placing here at A2 was a big mistake. There's really no other way to say it. Placing there at A2 and not capturing that stack, big mistake. Now white has the stack. The capstone is pinned. What's black's play here? Black's play could be to capture down onto C3 with C4, which would be attack threat. Easily interruptible by capturing. Oh no, decides to play here at D3, also attack threat. Having the capstone pinned like this is a little concerning. Because once this threat goes away, white dropping a flat here is pretty dang close to Tinue. It isn't Tinue, but it's very close. The only thing that can stop it, a flat here, once this threat has been dealt with, this one here coming down from D4 to C4 to C3, once that threat has been dealt with, the only thing that stops this. Oh, okay. Well, now he ruined that. The only thing that would have stopped a D1 would have been capturing down and then immediately capturing down again, which I guess is still the case. Actually, he may have set it up just fine to work. So black is going to have to capture this for sure at C3. It will result in white owning this stack, but a wall here at D3 will be able to recapture at least part of the stack once this has happened. So basically what I'm saying is black captures down, makes attack threat. White captures over. Black recaptures this stack, and then white captures it again. And so it's a really tall stack. Then black drops a wall right here to recapture at least part of the stack once the stack has been moved. And that will hopefully ruin a little bit of this. That's a problem. That is a problem for black because if white plays here, I think that might be game. I think... No, it wouldn't be game because we've got this. Okay. But if white decides to move part of the stack over, it would be game. So if white had taken the top 2 and moved it here to D1, or the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 4 and moved it to D1, I believe that would have been a Tinue. Instead, right now, that is met with that. White will place here. No, I don't think it's Tinue. Maybe not Tinue. Because if white plays here at A2, that's not attack threat. We're still 1 away from attack threat. Okay. So if white plays here, black now has the opportunity to capture this stack. Not doing so would be a mistake. Capture that stack, please. So black, because this is no longer attack threat, this capstone is not pinned. And the capstone can now come down, capture this stack, and do whatever it wants with it. Whether that be just move the capstone back right here and make attack threat, or come over and cover these things up. It's all on black at this point. So a lot of opportunities. Okay, black did see that capstone capturing move, which is tough to see when you've got your capstone pinned for so long. When it finally becomes unpinned, that is hard to notice for a lot of players. So we do see that move be made here. Will white place... No, moves the capstone. Solid move on white's part. Now, what I expect to see from black here is to move part of this stack across and give the capstone the opportunity to jump up and cover up this flat and capture this stack. Instead places, which is also a fine move. I do like, though, leaving, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So would have to leave there. So come over with these, drop a black, and then drop the capstone with the 2 whites. Probably the right move. Okay. So black will want to recapture here onto A1 to get this stack back. The reason I say that is because without it, white can take this stack and throw it up and cover up A2 and A3. And that's a really powerful flat move and a really strong anchor point for all of these road potentials. Definitely want to recapture that stack at A1. Or, barring that, make that other move I mentioned earlier, moving the capstone over here, and then on the next turn capturing up to C3. But capturing back on A1 is probably the right move to make here. What's it gonna be, Fela? They are about even on time between the two of them. Fela a little bit lower in time right now. Fela has disconnected. That could be part of why Fela is a little bit low on time. Again, got 2 minutes to reconnect. A lot of disconnections in this game. Not quite sure what those are about. I haven't disconnected from Playtag, so it's not a Playtag issue. And it's not our Wi-Fi. It must be her iPad that's doing that, since we are in the same house. Okay, so Fela is back in the game. Has to make a move here. Again, capturing an A1, probably the best move. Second best move, moving the stack over a little bit and leaving the capstone here. Ooh, I do not like that position, because on this next turn now, we're going to see a attack threat from white, and the only move that black can do to stop it is basically dropping a wall right here on F2. White did not make that move, instead just placed it B1. A very unusual move. It is still a attack threat, though, and so black will either have to drop a flat here at F2 or recapture A1, but if recapturing A1 at this point just leaves it to be recaptured by B1. So in the long run, a wall will have to be dropped here at F2 by black in order to stop this threat. But again, this stack here and this capstone being the leading cause right there. Okay, a wall didn't get dropped. It was just a flat stone. I think that's fine. Yeah, flat stone is actually probably a better play there, because then the wall can, then this capstone can continue on to build a threat, a vertical threat here. Now, an interesting play, because of the placement of this wall, might be for black, if white doesn't place here with a flat on the next turn, for black to place a flat here at A4, because that would be sort of a roundabout road threat that would be easy to miss because of the placement of that wall. But instead, we will see dFruh did just reconnect. A lot of connection issues this game. Very, very unusual. So dFruh will likely place a... Oh, gonna instead move the wall over. Great opportunity for black to just fill in here with a flat at D4, as that would create a horizontal road threat. Not filling in at D4, filling in at A4. Still a horizontal road threat. Placing here at D4 on the next turn will be a horizontal road threat. Or a horizontal road, rather, because it is currently a threat. And then on the next turn, after, let's say, after a wall has been played here at D4, because a flat would just get recaptured by this and be a road. So if dFruh walls here on D4 instead, placing at, ooh, here's an interesting conundrum. So this stack is now here. I really want that B4 to come over here and capture onto C4. Really, really strong move because of the stack, but instead decides to place. Really taking that advice that No Hat Coder has written in that strategy guide to place more than capture. But in this case, being able to capture over onto this stack and have 4 black flats in one stack and no way for white to recapture it right away except by throwing over this wall. Pretty solid. Okay, and so we see the wall come down now. Now here's where I want to see C3 come up and capture onto B4. Or C4. C3 up to C4, which will be attack threat. It's good. C3 to C4 would be attack threat. And pretty solid. The reason it would be attack threat would be coming up here and then spreading that stack out along that 4 file. This is shaping up to be a much longer game in terms of time and moves than the previous game between dFruh and Fela. Whether that's due to dFruh being white or just because neither of them have missed a attack threat yet. Hard to say. Probably a little bit of both. We see Fela taking her time. Still do think that C3 plus move would be the best move here to both be offensive here and defensive. Instead, that move doesn't really make any sense to me. Placing at E4, unless you're just going for flats at this point, which, I mean, she is pretty low on flats. She can start pushing the flat game. But moving this up and capturing that stack it's got to be the best move possible for black. And so it'll be interesting to see what white does on the next move, either to renew the threat by placing maybe here at F1, because there's no attack threat from black right now. Placing an F1 for white would renew attack threat. It would be easily stopped by moving some pieces of this stack over. White going ahead and capturing here. Not attack threat. Still. Let's look at the flat count here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from black, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from white. So black had a slight advantage. By slight, I mean pretty solid advantage by being able to move over this stack, get some positive flat moves, and also because on the next turn, let's say black places a flat, that will put black at 11 flats and able to control when the game ends because has fewer flats reserved. Black making that capture and making that attack threat. Big move, big move. This is where you will likely see a wall come out from white, placing here at D4, or potentially capturing up with B3 to B4. B3 to B4 would just be a delay, I believe. It wouldn't actually it would interrupt the immediate attack threat, but it would basically just be a delaying move, since it can be immediately recaptured by the stack here. So I expect a wall on D4 to stop that. And then after a wall comes out, black has a number of options. Can decide to move this stack upward or cover up some flats down below. Wall comes out. What will black do? Up or down with that? Going up would make attack threat. Going down would not. I like the idea of going up because, for a couple reasons. But decides to place instead, also attack threat. I feel like could have done a little bit more by throwing the stack up. The spread here would have created an anchor point up at C6, which could then be continued by on the next move placing it F4 to make a vertical threat and horizontal threat at the same time. Always great to create two-pronged threats, so they are harder to defend against, if not impossible. A lot of Tinue patterns are found by making bidirectional or two-pronged threats. So we do see dFruh has to respond to this horizontal threat, likely by recapturing this big stack with this wall. Instead, misses the horizontal threat and decides to make their own horizontal threat. Now here's the question, will black miss that they have the win here by placing at C5? Because we have seen that before in beginner tournaments. Or will black take the win? Because it looks like Fela's taking a lot of time here. Okay, probably just making sure that that wasn't a misclick. And black does take the win here because white, just like in the previous game, did miss that attack threat. So congratulations to Fela on winning this game, and well played, dFruh. You did pretty well here. This was a really strong position, and you had some pretty strong positions throughout the game, so well played for both players. And that is going to be the end of this match in the USTA Beginner Tournament. Be sure to hop on PlayTac, hop on the Discord, find people to play with. All of those links are provided in the channel or description or whatever you're watching this on, Twitch or PlayTac or YouTube or whatever. So go check those out, find people to play with, and until the next time, happy tacking.